Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to be tackling a question that I know a lot of you have been wondering about, and that is just how intelligent are dolphins?
Hmm.
And luckily for us, we can get some real insight into that question by looking at the work of Lori Marino, who's a neuroscientist at Emory.
Right.
So one of the things that we hear about dolphins all the time is that they have these, amazingly large brains, especially compared to like their body size.
Yeah.
But Marino actually points out that a lot of modern dolphin brains are straight up larger than ours.
Yeah, it's true.
And in fact, they're second in mass only to the human brain when you correct for body size.
Yeah.
So that's pretty wild. But I guess like a big brain doesn't necessarily mean like a smart animal, right?
Yeah, that's right. It's not just about the size, really. It's about the complexity, what's going on in there.
So how do we like what's the significance then, I guess, of a dolphin having this large brain? Like what does that tell us about their actual cognitive ability?
Well, it definitely suggests that there's a lot more potential for processing information.
Uh-huh.
A larger brain, especially one that's larger than expected for their body size, suggests that there's just more going on. And when we look closely at the structure of the dolphin brain, it gets even more interesting.
Okay, so let's get into that a little bit.
Yeah.
What are some of the features that stand out when you look at the anatomy of a dolphin brain?
Well, one of the things that's really remarkable is the neocortex.
Okay.
And as you mentioned, that's the part of the brain that is responsible for higher order functions, language, consciousness, things like that.
Right.
And in dolphins, it is incredibly developed. And it's even more convoluted than ours,
Wow.
which means there are more folds, there's more surface area,
Uh-huh.
and so potentially more capacity for processing complex information.
So it's kind of like, I mean, more wrinkles, more surface area, like more brain power, kind of.
Exactly. Yeah. Packing more in.
That's pretty amazing. So what else are we looking at here?
Well, they also have these extensive insular and cingulated regions.
Okay.
And those parts of the brain are linked to emotion, social behavior, even self-awareness.
Self-awareness. Okay,
Yeah.
now hold on a second. We're going to need to dive into that a little deeper because that's a big deal, right?
Right.
When we talk about self-awareness, we're not just talking about like recognizing themselves in the mirror, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we've all seen those videos of dolphins like checking themselves out. It's
Yeah.
pretty cute.
Yeah. It's very cute. It goes much deeper than that.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Think about what's actually happening when those dolphins are looking in the mirror.
Right.
It's not just that they recognize a dolphin, they actually come to understand that that reflection represents them.
Oh.
And that's a huge cognitive leap
Yeah.
because it means there's this understanding of I and me that's present.
It really is pretty mind-blowing when you think about it. I mean, how does that level of intelligence, I guess, play out in their day-to-day life? I mean, like in their natural environment, are there things that they do that really showcase this?
Well, and that's what makes Marino's work so interesting, is that this
Right.
isn't just happening in a lab setting, right?
Yeah.
This is like we see evidence of this in how dolphins interact in the wild.
Mhm.
They have incredibly complex social structures. They use vocalizations for communication in really sophisticated ways.
Yeah.
They even engage in these cooperative hunting strategies. And none of this is just purely instinctual.
Yeah.
It requires planning, it
Mhm.
requires communication, it requires an understanding of the other dolphins that they're working with.
So you're saying these dolphins have like a highly developed neocortex.
Yeah.
They're showing signs of self-awareness. They have this very intricate social world. Like it kind of like when you start to think about it like that, it makes you wonder like, what are the implications for us, for humans,
Absolutely.
for how we interact with these animals, you know?
That's the big question that Marino's research really brings to the table, is if dolphins are capable of this, if they have this level of intelligence, this social complexity, how should our relationship with them change?
It's a big one.
It is a big one.
Yeah, it really is. I
Yeah.
mean, that's a big question. So like, where do we even begin to unpack that? What are some of the specific concerns that Marino raises?
Well, one of the biggest ones has to do with how we treat dolphins, especially in captive environments.
Okay.
I mean, if we're talking about an animal that has this level of intelligence, this capacity for emotion, for social bonds, even potentially like a sense of self,
Right.
then keeping them, in these confined spaces, separated from their social groups,
Yeah.
it really makes you question the ethics of it all.
Yeah, it does. It makes you think about how we've started to rethink, how we treat other intelligent animals in captivity, like primates, for example.
Right.
Like there's this growing understanding that, confining them can be really damaging to their well-being. So are we saying that we need to start having those same conversations about dolphins?
Absolutely. Marino's work is really a call to do just that,
Okay.
to reconsider the ethics of keeping dolphins in marine parks, of using them for entertainment, even some of the research that's conducted, without really fully understanding the potential impact on their well-being.
So where do we go from here? Like what can we do if we want to have this more ethical relationship with dolphins?
Yeah.
What are the steps?
Well, I think a big part of it is just understanding, you know, education. Marino's research gives us this incredible foundation to really reevaluate how we interact with dolphins
Mhm.
by learning about their intelligence, their social structures, how they communicate. It allows us to appreciate them for who they are, not just what they can do for us.
It really is a call to action for all of us to look beyond what we see on the surface, to recognize the intelligence that exists in these other species, these
Yeah.
amazing creatures, and to think about the impact that we have.
Well, this has been a real deep dive.
It has.
And
In every sense of the word. So thanks to everyone for joining us. And until next time, keep those minds curious.